Hello, it is Thursday, September 14th, 2017 at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is Marketing Live. I am your host, Amy Jorgensen. On today's live broadcast, we're talking about the Higher Education Social Media Strategy Summit in Boston, Massachusetts. The Higher Education Social Media Strategy Summit will be held November 2nd through 3rd in Boston, Massachusetts. Each year, college and university professionals gather to learn best practices in social media marketing from peer leaders. For the past 3 years, conference committee members have fine-tuned how to build a compelling, relevant agenda that is both informative and inspirational. To get the most out of hashtag SMS Summit prior to planning will be helpful for all attendees. In this episode of Marketing Live, we are going to be meeting with conference organizers to discuss the do's, don'ts, and conference pro tips you need to know before heading to Boston. Marketing Live is part of a Higher Ed Live network. Our episodes offer you direct access to the best and brightest minds in education. Be a part of our live broadcast by sharing your knowledge. Participate in today's discussion by tweeting us using hashtag HigherEdLive. All of our episodes are free and easy to access in the video archives at higheredlive.com. Or take Higher Ed Live with you on the go by subscribing to our podcast. Higher Ed Live is produced by M. Stoner, a digital-first agency committed to tailored solutions that drive real results. We want Higher Ed Live to become your go-to professional development resource. To improve the quality and delivery of our content, help us by filling out the survey at the link we will be tweeting shortly. I'd like to welcome our two guests today. We have Brianna Jacobs, Vice President for Conference Production at the Global Strategic Management Institute. Welcome, Brianna.
Hi, glad to be here.
We also have Chris Barrows, Social Media and Mobile Product Coordinator for the New York University. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
So again, anyone who is watching, do not hesitate to ask questions as they come in and just use hashtag HigherEdLive on Twitter, and I'll try my best to deliver them to Chris and Brianna. So let's start off with some overview. So conference basics. Let's talk a little bit about where it is, when it's happening, and who is your target audience. Brianna, you want to dive in?
Yeah. So I mean, you had mentioned the dates for the conference. So it's a 2-day event, November 2nd to the 3rd. And so we're going to be at the Royal Sonesta in Boston, which we've had the conference there the last 2 years that we've run the event. It's a beautiful venue. It's a great view of the Charles River there and just really central to Boston. So it's, it's obviously a fun place to have a conference because it's walking distance to a bunch of different restaurants. And if you're there for sightseeing and stuff, it's really easily accessible to all that as well. But so it's very, it's 2 days of case studies and trainings. And so it is very geared towards, anyone working in higher education marketing. So it's about a group of around 100 professionals within higher education, just sort of coming together to talk about those different strategies and challenges, and sort of finding out from your peers, how they're, tips and tricks for that sort of stuff. And so it's a lot of peer-to-peer learning, and then, obviously that opportunity to engage with those speakers and learn from those case studies as well.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Chris, is there anything to add? I saw you look excited there.
Oh no, I think because keep in mind, I've been attending this since these originated. Before the Higher Ed one existed, I was attending the social media strategy summits that take place. And I think one of the big things here is there's a lot of conferences. I mean, I myself manage a conference, and I have huge respect for what these provide, and what Social Media Strategy Summit Higher Education does. And the reason that it's a big deal to me is it takes practitioners and it puts them in front of you. These are not necessarily not everyone who's speaking is not necessarily, someone who's just goes around speaking all the time. These are folks who are doing it, and they're doing this because they want to share the knowledge that they have and the experiences that they have. And I think who this is for is anyone who touches social, because you're going to take something away, even if you are just trying to get the basics of social and some things that, maybe you'd want to do if you want to get into this. It's a great way to discover. And because it's not, 500, 600, 700 people, it's also very personal. It's enough people that you're going to learn a lot, but at the same time, it's not an overload. So I think it's just about the perfect size for this topic. And as she mentioned, it's been in the same space, and I've had the privilege of going to those, and it's a great space. And walking distance, I can tell for walking distance, a lot of cool places. There's like the Beers of the World is like 5 minutes away, which is well, I like it for that reason.
Go to the conference just to be able to go to Beers of the World.
Yeah. No, and I think, what is it? The Museum of Science is right around the corner. So it's right around the corner from a lot of cool things. And Boston's very walkable. You could take a quick Uber to get to the other side of Boston and really get into the historic district and, go see some of the other campuses too, because you've got some great campuses in Boston that are worth visiting. So I'm a big fan of it, but the location is definitely prime real estate as far as I'm concerned.
That's awesome. So what can attendees expect out of the sessions? I love that you mentioned that it's small and intimate and that you can really connect with other people. Because I've gone to those conferences, it's got a couple thousand people, and it's like, how do you really connect with someone? So what can they expect out of the sessions and the things that they're learning and opportunities to collaborate with one another?
Yeah, so we have, so we sort of split the conference into two different types of sessions. So at the beginning of the event, we start with pre-summit workshops or trainings. So attendees can sign up for these separately, and they're made up of smaller groups of attendees that are just focused on, a specific topic that sort of allows them to, they're very activity and discussion oriented. And so we've always found that a really good way to kick off the conference because it's, because it's a smaller group of attendees, it's at least a little bit less intimidating to come in and sort of meet some of the attendees. And then you're kind of working together in groups to start those conversations and work through some kind of problem solving and, sharing those findings. And so that's just a good way to get the good energy going and those conversations starting. So that's the way that we start the conference. And then the remainder of the conference is case studies. And we break the sessions into different themes. So it's case studies around, increasing awareness for your institution through social media. We have sessions that are tailored to certain platforms like Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook, and content creation, storytelling, which is obviously always huge and has been, the last two times that we've done this conference. Student and faculty engagement and advocacy. So those are kind of some of the themes that we have planned. And so the attendees can sort of pick and choose the different case studies that they attend, and just kind of, going back to that point of it being a smaller conference, we always save time for Q&A at the end of each session. And so, the speakers are very accessible at the conference and kind of encouraging attendees to come with questions and just, not be afraid to, engage in that discussion after each of the talks. And so that's sort of the way that we structure it. And then also, of course, planning some networking in there. And then we're also running the EDU Hall of Fame for the first time. And so we partnered with Stoner on that, which is exciting. And so attendees, you don't actually have to be an attendee to enter, but we're kind of, wanting to acknowledge some of the awesome work that institutions are doing in the space of social media. And so we'll be announcing the winners at the conference too. So sort of injecting some fun in there too. It doesn't always, it's not all just listening to talks and stuff. It's a lot of, networking and stuff like that as well. So that's sort of the different types of formats that we have at the summit.
Very cool.
And I would add too, because you have a good mix generally every year of people who've spoken at the conference and then people who have not spoken at it. So there's always something new. And I think the key thing, and because I think this is something that a lot of spaces miss out on, is the fact that everyone who comes, it's not like they're repeating something. We're talking about these brand new things. You're not looking at repeat content. It's fresh content. So you've got folks who are doing good things, who are telling about something they did, within this recent time period. Or if it's a case study, it's got this data that is relevant to you. And the relevancy is what I think is very important. When I talk to a lot of people, I get to go to, one conference or two conferences a semester. At most, usually it's one conference a semester, maybe two per year. And you want to choose that. And you want to choose that wisely. So if you're in this industry, I think, again, we've said small, but 100 to 150 people is not small. It's still a good size. And these are smart people, and you can pick their brains. So I think when you think about what to expect, these folks are going to be around to talk to you, to share their knowledge. And when you have the, lunch or something like that, it's kind of like a fun working session. We forget sometimes that if you work in any way in social media is actually quite fun. It's an enjoyable job. Now there's stressful days and there's things that, oh my gosh, why do we have to deal with this? And why is there a rogue group that's being a pain? But in the end, it's a fun job, and we get to geek out, as I like to say, about what is fun about it, and also kind of sharing the problems that we have. So I think when it comes out, the sessions go beyond the actual sessions you're attending, but they go into the conversations that follow, and the conversations that could happen in the evening after the first day. Well, you could continue these conversations, and ultimately it is a great group of people. I think for the sessions themselves, keep in mind that these folks have done these things and are trying to provide value. So often, if you don't get a chance to talk to someone, it's very easy, and I stress this, to follow up and have a conversation post-conference. If you didn't get a chance to talk to someone, that's the other thing, is these people are generally folks who are going to chat with you after. And Brianna and the conference do a great job of bringing in these people whose goal is to help and to drive the industry forward, which is ultimately, I think, the most important thing.
That's very cool. So what is one of your favorite things you've learned from past sessions?
Oh, one of someone I've become friends with and I've got to work with, but Jason has done some fantastic sessions on Snapchat. I know he'll be back this year. And when we talk about Snapchat, which is so important, everyone wants to just jump in. I think he's brought some real good credence to the fact that here's things you can do, but coming in with a plan. And I think it's just so important. People don't talk about it. I've actually had the privilege of for me, this was a real honor, but I think it was last year I got a chance to talk about podcasting at the conference. And it was actually a learning experience for me as a speaker, because I got to talk to folks afterwards, and I learned of the podcasts I didn't know existed in the space. So I think for the speaker, and I know this wasn't necessarily the question, but I think even if you have a chance to speak or, at something like this, it's also a learning opportunity where you can learn from folks in attendance. So I don't care if you're a speaker, I don't care if you're an attendee, you're going to get something from it. And I think that's the best part. And you're always going to learn. The key is taking the time to have the conversations with people. And as long as you do that, you will gain a lot from the conference.
Yeah. So what about you, Brianna? What is your favorite thing you've gotten to experience at the conference in the past?
I think it's just, for me, I guess this is a little bit different because it's coming from it's the conference organizer perspective. But for me, the most rewarding part of actually running the conference is just getting to meet everyone. And so, honestly, for me, it's a little bit unfortunate as a conference organizer. I don't necessarily get to sit in on the sessions themselves and, take notes and stuff like that as much as I wish I could. But just like meeting all the speakers and, learning about what they're working on, and the attendees too, and just, seeing those relationships and friendships that happen from the conference. And this is sort of general to all the events that I've worked on, but it's just been really fun for me to see people who have met at the Social Media Strategy Summit that come back year after year, but also just sort of the business relationships and partnerships and stuff that have blossomed from that, I think is really rewarding. So maybe that's not really the question you were asking, but at least for me, that's, it's just really, and Chris too, I've worked with him, and it's awesome too, because he's a conference organizer as well, in addition to being a speaker. And so he sort of understands all the work that goes into it. So that's been awesome working with him. He's, really open to collaborating and promoting and stuff like that. And so working closely with speakers like that and building those relationships, even for myself, has been really rewarding. But and just another thing too, Chris was talking about the Snapchat session, but I've noticed that a lot of attendees coming to this event, I think for them, it's the case studies are interesting because I think it's a good validation for them to sort of gauge, where their college or university is at with their social media strategies. But even just, talking about podcasting or Snapchat or Instagram, and these speakers that are willing to come in and say, these are our trials and tests, and this is what we learned, and maybe what didn't go so well, or what we're moving forward with. And so it's a good way to see, if you're considering getting into Snapchat or even podcasting or whatever it may be, it's a good way to sort of see, what other universities have tested out and maybe what you can try versus just kind of going in blindly. It gives you that foundation of where you can start and some ideas to start with. So it's kind of a mix of that, best practices, and also just seeing what other people have tried out and how you can learn from that. So I just wanted to mention that too, because that seems to be a common theme with attendees that come to the conference.
Well, and that's such a good point, because I've been to conferences and I can come back and say, here's what this institution is doing and it worked really well, or, other institutions tried this and it didn't work. And so being able to bring that back to your management and say, all right, let's try something new and here's why, I think has a lot more credibility than sometimes let's just gamble. So
yeah, definitely. Chris, you were going to say something?
Yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say data is something you'll come back with. That's the most important thing. Come back with data that supports doing something or says, yeah, this is why we shouldn't do it. Because that's one of the things that, unfortunately, I think in this industry and many other industries, too often we say, no, we need to do this. And we get told to do it from some place that, it's often from above. And sometimes it's not a good idea. And we have to learn to say no. To opportunities. So creating a Snapchat account, I think, is a good example, but it could be, are we going to do Instagram stories or are we going to do Snapchat stories? Which is the right one for us? Well, I mean, there's debates on which route to go, but it's all going to be unique to you, but you can come back with the information that's going to help you make that decision and the references to make, because I think we are in an industry, and this is what's crucial to me. We're in an industry where we do share information. I mean, we may not give everything away, but we share information. And to me, that is something that's really neat. And that's what makes this industry very special.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. So what do we need to know if we're going to be going to the conference about the venue and the city and making sure that we are fully prepared?
What would I say about, I mean, I guess I have some tips about just, making sure you're maybe not specific to like the city and the venue and stuff, but at least being prepared to sort of take full advantage of the conference itself. I will just say a quick thing about attire. I feel like we get this question often, just business casual, just throwing it out there too, because we get that question. And also just, I really encourage attendees to try to get in touch with others who are attending before the conference. So when you check in, you do get a full attendee list of everyone who's there. Right now on the website, we have listed just job titles and the institution that they're coming from. But when you check in, you actually get a full attendee list. So, I mean, I know, 100 and 150 people is still a sizable amount, but I totally think it's possible to really, if there's specific people that you want to connect with, it's totally possible to do that. And also the staff on site, myself, I'll be there. And our sales manager, Audrey, will also be there. We're happy to help make those connections. So, and just reaching out, using the hashtag SMS Summit and say, hey, I'm going to higher ed. Who else is going to be there? I mean, that hashtag is super active. And we also have, I just newly launched this Facebook group for attendees and speakers. So this isn't specific to higher education event. It's across our complete social media strategy summit series, but it's open to speakers and attendees. And so you can join, introduce yourself. It's a good way to meet other people attending the conference. And also afterwards, you can, if there's someone you missed at the conference or whatever that's inside the group, you can ask questions or just connect with people that way. So I would say that I would really encourage attendees to do that and try to connect with people. And then also, I'm just saying this because it happens to me all the time, is business cards. I always forget those. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like after attending so many conferences, I would notice to have those in my bag, but just a friendly reminder to bring business cards so you can make sure to give those to people that you want to follow up with afterwards. But those are kind of my tips. Chris, I don't know, you kind of on the speaker side, attendee side, if there's anything else you would add there.
I mean, I think venue's pretty self-explanatory when you get there. It's pretty easy to navigate. It's a very nice hotel. I think for the city, as someone who has been there a lot over the past 3-4 years, I think it's aside from New York, I spend more time in Boston than any other city. It's funny how it's worked out that way, but a lot of good conferences go there. And but the thing with Boston is, if you have a chance to get in early and enjoy the city, because you're going to want to enjoy the conference and take it all in. But if you can get in and enjoy Boston, I recommend it. There's a lot of cool things to do there. It's actually a really nice time of year because it's that fall crisp air. So a little bit of a jacket, but beyond that, it's nice. I mean, I guess if you're from California, you might want to bring a bigger jacket because it might feel a little bit colder. But
you of course had to make the dig at me coming from the West Coast, right?
It's just true. I talk to a lot of people because it's funny. I've gone to California conferences and been like, oh, it's so warm out, and they're like, you're clearly a tourist. So I know I've been on the opposite side, but I think it's a beautiful city. There's a lot to do. There is a lot to see, and I think that you need to. I think you need to, if you're going to come in early, plan ahead, see what you can do, and then come enjoy the conference. There's a lot by the hotel, but the other side of the river has a lot of cool stuff, and I could probably talk about it for 20 minutes. I'm not going to do it. So just go look up what's in Boston, see it. There will be no baseball probably at that time, so no games, but here I am hoping the Red Sox aren't playing in the World Series. So obviously I'm biased, but yeah, I think I think there's a lot to do. And if you've got questions, I've been there enough. Feel free to tweet at me too. I can give you some tips and hints and point you to folks, more importantly, who live in Boston, who can give you some real tips from actual native Bostonians.
Yeah. So, and I would just mention, maybe if not even coming early, but staying afterwards, since the conference is a Thursday, Friday, so you can just stay that weekend after. So there's always that option too that might work out. So
your vacation days.
I know, right? There you go.
So what's your absolute favorite thing to do in Boston?
I'm gonna leave that to Chris. He's the
expert
Boston goer.
I like the walking tour, to be quite honest. Just go walk this. If you haven't been there, go do the historic tour. Yeah. It's great. And then if you can, go talk to, meet up with some folks who are more local and do the more local stuff. I say this with any city, but go do the local stuff that you wouldn't do, because there's so much touristy stuff. I come from New York, where everyone comes in and says, oh, let's go to Times Square. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to go to Times Square. So I feel like you got to take the same attitude with Boston. Like, go do stuff that you wouldn't do. Do the touristy stuff. Yeah, take a day to do touristy stuff. But after that, get together, hang out with some locals. Go to, if you go up by Old North Church, though, there's amazing Italian restaurants up, just so many. So I do highly recommend you go do that. I like my Italian food, but they're all incredible. So if there's one thing I'd recommend, it's that. You cannot go wrong with any restaurant in that general area. So if I said anything, and the aquarium is really cool too. If you can see the aquarium, I do recommend it.
Okay, so you talked a little bit before about how it's going to be crisp. What should we pack? I mean, you talked a little bit about being business casual. So like, can I wear my Batman t-shirt and a suit jacket, or do I need to,
I don't know.
Can I just point out one thing? Hold on one sec. I'll point this out. I walk around with this.
Yeah.
So you can be so casual. You don't have to be in a suit.
I wouldn't actually put that outfit past maybe something that Chris would wear. So, and he manages to play into the conference every time. So. Yes,
but the point is, you can dress.
What do you do with the shield? Are you?
Oh, it's my backpack.
It's a backpack.
Yeah, it's all it is.
Wait, pull it up again. I want to see. That's so cool.
It's just
flip it around. Flip around the other side.
It's all it's just the straps. But
where did you get that?
I don't want to turn this into promotion for thinkgeek.com, but
that's awesome.
They owe me a lot of money, I think. But no, but I just stress the fact that it is business casual in the sense, and it's I'm generally wearing a pair of jeans and a nice shirt. And more about it, I've seen people coming in wearing suits. I've seen people with jeans and a t-shirt. So I mean, when it comes down to it, I've seen every sort. It's dressed to be comfortable, because you're going to be at a conference all day long, and I think that's what the important thing is. You want to be comfortable, wear comfortable shoes. I always give credit to the folks I see wearing, I'll just flat out say it. Any woman I've seen who's wearing a nice pair of heels, I give you all credit. Because I don't know how you do it all day.
No, I ditched those a long time ago. Flats only.
Yeah. Yeah. So I say just be comfortable, because be comfortable. Think about, like, how would you represent yourself? You know what I mean? And I think being you is important. So that's part of it. But yeah, certainly be comfortable. That's my biggest bit of advice, because you're going to be walking around from room to room for different sessions. So you're not sitting around all day. That's not what it is.
Well, like what you talked about before is that you never know who you're going to meet and who you're going to get to connect with and how that might lead to potential opportunities in the future. So being authentic and being yourself and being a version of yourself that you're willing to put out there and look for those networking opportunities. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
So online, is this the kind of conference where so how do we follow along if we can't attend? So is this the kind of conference that's super active on social? We can look at the hashtag. Are we allowed to join the group, the Facebook group you were talking about, if we can't go to the conference?
So we're most active on Twitter using the hashtag, and the Social Media Strategy Summit Twitter handle will be active too. I mean, I'll be tweeting from that during the event, which is at SMS_summit. And then hashtag SMS Summit. I don't think you would expect any less from a room of social media marketers, but yeah, throughout the conference, people are tweeting what they're learning, and even just resources and stuff too that people tweet out that they learned about during talks and things like that. So I would say Twitter is probably your best bet to follow along and just kind of keep track of what's going on during the talks. And we do also. This is new. We launched a content library where we host all of the slides and the MP3s from previous conferences. So that won't be available, immediately after the conference is over, because we have to process all that and, get it up online. But that can be a great resource too for people who weren't able to attend, can download some of the slides and check out some of the learnings from that. For the Facebook group, I'm keeping it for attendees and speakers, just to sort of keep that, the community of social media alumni kind of to that group. But we also have a Facebook page where we'll be posting some stuff as well. So we're definitely online and accessible, and we'll be tweeting out some stuff during the conference. So it's not, difficult to follow along there.
Cool.
Yeah, and I was just double checking because I had some data back from, because you probably figured I would do this, but I had some data back from, I think it was the 2015, and there was almost 2,000 tweets at that one. And that was like within a day or and a half. So, I mean, it's a pretty active space. Obviously it is a bunch of social media folks. So you have to keep that in mind, that social media people are going to be social. But I bring up that number just to kind of put that in perspective, that there's going to be plenty. And that was 2015. I know there was more in 2016. And one thing I want to make sure I point this out, because you had asked us about tips before, and one thing I didn't say was, as much as there's power, bring battery packs. You're going to want to tweet, share things, take photos. So bring battery packs. I recommend it. You can get a good one online for literally $30. That's gonna get you through the entire week. So
I should get one of those.
Recommend that.
I don't even have a power pack.
Yeah, they're only like $30-$40. I mean, you can get a good one that's going to get you a lot. I can make recommendations on all those for conference goers, because I run off that thing. And it could actually charge your laptop if you have the right piece too. So
nice.
Can't go wrong.
I got a solar powered phone charger, and it cost me $20, and it's waterproof, and it is the best thing ever. You can just stick it in a window if you don't have access to it, and then charge your phone. It's awesome.
That's awesome.
And you can use it like a little power pack. And I think it was like $20 online. So shopping.
Yeah, but it's definitely important. And honestly, more than anything, bring a willingness to engage and converse with people. I stress it more than anything because, when it comes down to it, sometimes people are shy the first day. Then slowly the second day comes. And in this case, when you're talking about a 2-day conference, you can't afford, in my opinion, to be shy on day one. I know you gotta, maybe work some things out and get a little bit more comfortable. Not everyone is an extrovert, but have some conversations. Trust me, you will benefit so much more if you do that. Start it early, and that's why looking out at maybe a comparable university who's attending with the list that's there, that might be a good starting point. And reach out before, start those conversations. But if there's any tip, that's the biggest tip, because you will reap the rewards of the conference, and this stands for any conference to be fair, but especially a social media one, if you start to reach out early.
Yeah, can I just say two quick things, and also kind of speaking to that sort of the willingness to engage. We have the way that our the main rooms are set up is that they're all round tables, so it's not into the cedar rows where you just have to, sit in a line. It's those tables. So at least in that sense, it's a little bit easier just to, sit down and start talking with people, because that's what we set it up for. And we're also doing something new, the industry roundtables that we have. I'm not sure if it's on November 2nd or 3rd, but basically we have thought of these topics that people can congregate around specific challenges, and it's peer led. So, people kind of, talk about common challenges that they're having. And then for, an hour, they're sharing with each other tips and tricks and sort of stuff that they've tried out. So that's, we're trying new ways to sort of make it easier for people to engage with each other. But I would look at it, as we mentioned, just sort of as a peer-to-peer learning experience too. And yeah, I mean, that obviously that willingness has to be there to engage, but we're, doing everything that we can to make it easier for people to talk to each other. So at least there's those two things I wanted to mention about the experience.
Wonderful. I think we've gotten some really good insight in regards to the conference and different things we can do to prepare. And wearing a Batman shirt with a suit jacket is okay if that's who you are.
Be authentic. Yeah. Stick with that.
Well, I'd like to thank you both so much for joining us today and giving us the inside scoop. It was awesome. And thank you always to our program sponsor, M. Stoner. And I hope you all have a good day.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.